In the land of Oz, there lived a man named Job, a righteous and upright person who feared God deeply and stayed away from all forms of evil. Job was a wealthy man, known far and wide not just for his riches but for his character. He was considered the greatest man among all the people of the East. Job owned thousands of livestock, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 pairs of oxen, and 500 donkeys. Along with his vast wealth, Job had a large family and many servants to take care of his property and animals. He was blessed with 10 children, 7 sons and 3 daughters. Job 1 verses 1-3. Job's children were close and loved spending time together. His sons would often take turns hosting feasts in each other's homes, inviting all their siblings to join. They ate, drank, and celebrated together regularly, enjoying the close bond they shared. Job, however, was always concerned for their spiritual well-being. He feared that in their joy, his children might stray from God or say something that could be offensive to him. After each feast, Job would rise early in the morning to offer burnt sacrifices on behalf of each of his children. He would think, "Perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Job did this continuously, showing his deep devotion to God and his commitment to his family's purity and righteousness. Job 1 verses 4-5. One day, a gathering took place in heaven where the angels came to present themselves before God, and Satan also came with them. God asked Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." Then the Lord asked, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." Job 1 verses 6-8. Satan replied, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." Job 1 verses 9-11. God considered Satan's challenge and allowed him to test Job, but with one condition. Satan was forbidden from harming Job himself. With this permission, Satan left the presence of the Lord to begin his mission of testing Job's faith. One fateful day, while Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the eldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job with distressing news. He reported, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby when the Sabaeans attacked. They took them and killed the servants with the sword. I am the only one who escaped to tell you." Job 1 verses 14-15. Before Job could fully process this news, another messenger arrived, breathless and distressed. He announced, "The fire of God fell from the sky and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you." As if that weren't enough, a third messenger arrived with more bad news. "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you." Job 1 verses 16-17. As Job struggled to comprehend the magnitude of these losses, yet another messenger came with the most tragic news of all. "Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert. It struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are all dead. I am the only one who escaped to tell you." Job 1 verses 18-19. Job was devastated beyond words. In a single day, he lost his wealth, his servants, and his beloved children. Stricken by overwhelming grief, he tore his robe, shaved his head, and fell to the ground in deep sorrow. Despite his unimaginable pain, Job did not curse God. Instead, he cried out in worship, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." Even in this tragedy, Job did not sin or blame God. Job 1 verses 20-22. But Job's suffering was far from over. Once again, the heavenly court gathered, and Satan returned before God. God again spoke to Satan, pointing out Job's unwavering faith and integrity despite the intense losses he had suffered. Satan, however, argued that Job's faith was still unproven. Skin for skin. Satan said, "A man will give all he has for his own life. But now stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face." Job 2 verses 4-5. God allowed Satan to go further in testing Job, but with one restriction. Satan could harm Job physically, but he was forbidden from taking his life. Soon after, Job was struck with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. In unbearable agony, he took a piece of broken pottery to scrape his sores while sitting among the ashes. Job's wife, seeing his suffering, was distraught and said to him, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job responded calmly, "You are speaking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" Through all this suffering, Job did not sin in what he said. Job 2 verses 7-10. When Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, heard about his troubles, they set out from their homes to offer him comfort. They could barely recognize him due to the severity of his suffering. They wept loudly, tore their robes, and sprinkled dust on their heads to show their sorrow. For 7 days and 7 nights, they sat with Job in silence, knowing words could not console him. They mourned with him, saying nothing, as they saw the depth of his grief and suffering. Job 2 verses 11-13. After 7 days, Job finally broke his silence. He cursed the day of his birth and expressed deep despair. "May the day of my birth perish, and the night that said, 'A boy is conceived.' That day, may it turn to darkness. May God above not care about it. May no light shine on it." Job questioned the purpose of his life, feeling as though his suffering had stripped him of any reason to live. He wondered aloud why God would give life to those in misery and bitterness, those who long for death but cannot find it. Job 3 verses 1-4, 20-21. His friends, seeing his despair, attempted to reason with him, but their words were more accusing than comforting. Eliphaz was the first to speak, suggesting that suffering is the result of hidden sins. He said, "Consider now. Who, being innocent, has ever perished? Where were the upright ever destroyed?" He implied that Job must have sinned, urging him to turn to God for forgiveness. Job 4 verses 7-8. Job defended himself, insisting that he had lived a righteous life. He grew increasingly frustrated with his friends' assumptions. "Doubtless you are the only people who matter, and wisdom will die with you. But I have a mind as well as you. I am not inferior to you." Job 12 verses 2-3. Job wanted to plead his case directly with God, convinced that he would be vindicated if only God would hear him. Eventually, God answered Job, not with explanations, but with questions that displayed his power and wisdom. God asked, "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand." He reminded Job of his control over the vastness of creation, from the stars in the sky to the animals on the earth. Job 38 verse 4. Job realized the limits of his own understanding and responded, "I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth." Job 40 verses 4-5. God's questions helped Job see that some things are beyond human understanding. Humbled and in awe of God's greatness, Job replied, "I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes." Job 42 verses 2-6. God restored Job's fortunes, giving him twice as much as he had before. Job's family, friends, and loved ones came to comfort him, and the Lord blessed the later part of Job's life even more than the beginning. Job ended up with 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 pairs of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys, along with a new family. He lived 140 more years, seeing his children and grandchildren to the fourth generation, a sign of God's blessing upon him. Through it all, Job learned to trust in God's wisdom, even when he could not understand it fully. Job 42 verses 10 to 17. In the end, Job's story teaches us that even in our darkest moments, God's purposes are far greater than we can see, and his wisdom surpasses our understanding. We are reminded to trust in him, for his ways are ultimately for our good, even when we cannot see it.
If you found this video enjoyable, please consider liking and sharing it. Additionally, subscribing to this channel will ensure that you receive more updates in the future. Thank you.